And I read this book and I was like, oh my gosh, I do not know anything. What is an ISA? What is a lifetime ISA? What is a mortgage? I had to go and teach myself all the things we weren't taught about in school.
Financial health is one of the biggest determinants of our health in general. And I think it is ridiculous that it is not being included in more health conversations. Elle is a leading voice in financial health, featured in BBC News, The Financial Times, Elle.
I think a lot of people see investing as gambling, but they don't realise, wow, if I can teach myself how to invest, I want to teach every young adult how to do the same.
Stocks, shares.
I personally don't invest in shares, but I do invest in
Bitcoin.
So
we'll explore how to track your spending, break a shopping addiction, build your credit score and invest. How do you personally do your budget?
I would say if you can.
So do you have Apple Pay on your phone?
It's so frictionless that we can be tapping and not realising how much you spend.
Apple Pay, in my head, I'm like, that's monopoly money. Tips on starting good financial habits for young people.
So I think firstly, you need to start. I always recommend if I'm teaching someone or I'm coaching someone.
If you haven't already, please could you just take one moment to leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Spotify, or subscribing if you are watching on YouTube. It is a huge help to the podcast and means that we can keep going, bringing you more and more guests that can help you live a happier, healthier life. Thank you, Ola. Our community have sent in so many incredible questions asking about all things financial health. But before we get started, I just wanted to say my personal reason for having you on this podcast and why I think it is so important is that financial health is one of the biggest determinants of our health in general. And I think it is ridiculous that it is not being included in more health conversations, full stop.
Yeah.
If we can be spending a ridiculous amount of money on all the wellness products under the sun, if it is making our financial health worse, that is not good for our overall health. But beyond that, we're going to talk about all things like investing, financial literacy, differences in gender financial health. But first of all, I wanted to just hear a little bit more from you about what was your experience with money growing up, and what was it like with your friends, your family? Did you talk about money?
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to me and finances, my friends have always coined me the cheap friend. And I always joke and preface by saying, like, I'm not cheap, I'm just frugal. And if I can find a better deal, I am that gal. So I feel like growing up, I've always kind of been good with money, quote unquote. But it wasn't until I got to university when I had my student loan and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to learn how to manage this money, because if I blow that up after freshers, I've got no one to look after me to like financially help me. So I think the switch clocked there firstly when I got to university. I was like, okay, I need to learn how to manage this money because it's a lot. I've never seen this kind of cash before, so I need to make sure I manage it well.
Just a small interjection. Why on earth do we give students like £3,000 into their... Why do we give them money? Students who have never had to deal with a salary, and we think it's a good idea to give them money they're meant to live off for 3 months in one go.
3 months.
It's
and also
ridiculous.
3 months that money's meant to cover your rent. That's got to cover your food. That's got to cover your socialising. And I was a big socialiser at university. So yeah, I think it's crazy. And then it was... after my placement year, I read this book, Money, a User's Guide. And again, I thought I was pretty clued up by 22 with how to manage my finances. And I read this book and I was like, oh my gosh, I do not know anything. What is an ISA? What is a lifetime ISA? What is a mortgage? And so again, I had to go and teach myself all the things we weren't taught about in school. And then it really quickly caught on as how little we're taught about money at school or university.
I'm so excited to come on to what is an ISA, what is a mortgage a little bit later on. But first, you said the word frugal. For people who are listening, what does the word frugal mean? And how do you embody the life of a frugal person?
That's a good question. I feel like frugal is just someone that is just conscious of how they spend their money. And I don't think it should be a bad thing. So if you are frugal, listen to the podcast, I'd say embrace it. So yeah, I just think I'm very conscious of how I spend my money, because I've always been of the mindset if God forbid anything happened to me or my parent, my mum or my sister, I know that I have to have something to fall back on. And so I'm not someone that is I'm not a big spender. Like, yes, I love to travel and everyone will come for me. Whoever follows me will be like, Ollie, you travel a lot. But I feel like that's the one thing I splurge on. But everything else, if I can get a good deal on, I'm there.
And also I think it's about like your own personal financial boundaries. Like I think especially the society that we live in, it can push you towards spending, it can pressure you into spending money on things you might not normally want to spend money on, like designer things. And, you know, if you personally know that you derive a lot of value from traveling, that is different than you feeling like, oh, I need to buy a designer bag because that is a sign of success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We've got a section that we're going to do a little bit later on that is our buy or buy section. But first, you've worked with some of the largest finance brands, like Barclays, Wealthify. What are the biggest gaps you've seen in education when it comes to the financial system?
Oh, biggest financial gaps. I would say not learning how to budget. I think that's the biggest thing, because I think, again, we get thrown into the adulting world, either go to uni or we get our first paycheck and don't know how to manage that. And I think especially when I work with a lot of clients of mine, they're always like, oh, I want to start saving, or I want to start investing. And I'm like, okay, how much can you afford to save or invest? And they're like, well, I don't know how much I have. And that all comes down to a budget. And so, again, when I work with young people, especially, they always roll their eyes and they're like, budgeting is so boring. But I'm like, no, budgeting just allows you to see how much you can afford to spend on the finer things in life, what you love to spend your money on, and then also how much you can save and invest. So I think budgeting is so important. But I think the fact that we're also not taught how to invest is, like, I think my biggest sticking point, because, again, I think a lot of the UK now become great savers, but none of us really, when we look at the bigger picture of the whole UK and I guess the 18 to 35s, not enough of us are investing. And that's the best way to grow and actually build wealth, rather than just saving and letting our savings earn 4% interest.
Yeah. What's your favourite way to budget? Like, how do you personally do your budget?
Oh, good question. So I give myself a money date every month. So
a money date?
Money date.
Nice.
A money date.
And what does it involve? Because that sounds really appealing. And I think maybe my issue with not, like, I don't do my budget every month. I am guilty of being like, I'll see how it goes. And but saying you have a money date, I'm like, I kind of want to join in on this money date. Yeah. This sounds kind of fun, you know? What does that involve?
So I feel like when it comes to mundane adulting tasks, we just have to romanticize it. And so if I've not got a man to take me out, I'm going to do a money date myself. So what I would do is basically just look at how much I've been paid. I pay myself on a monthly basis because I'm self-employed. So every month I look at how much that is, because it might vary depending on what I've got coming up that month. And then I break up that budget or that paycheck that's come in into a weekly budget. And then, so let's say, for example, I get paid into my Lloyd's bank account, and then every single week I pay myself into a separate bank account, and then only go spending with that bank card, because I feel like a lot of us, when it comes to spending now, it's so frictionless that we can be tapping and not realising how much you spend. You look really guilty of that.
Yeah, I feel personally attacked. This is, Apple Pay, that's not in my head. I'm like, that's Monopoly money.
Exactly. Girl math, right? Yeah. So I think it's really important if we can add a bit of friction to our spending. So for me, it looks like giving myself that weekly budget. At university, I used to cash that weekly budget. So at the time, I used to live off like £50 a week, which is insane. Now you could just never. But I used to literally cash £5, £10 notes. And I know it made me just a bit more conscious of my spending. So I knew every Wednesday I had to go to my sports night, I had to go to the student union. So again, it made me conscious of, okay, will I sacrifice a lunch in the library just so I can get my sports night ticket? Or, I want to see the girls one evening. What else can I sacrifice when it comes to my spending? So I think having that weekly budget was a great way to kind of budget my finances.
I really like the idea of adding more friction.
Yes.
Just, even the way that the human brain works, like our human brain, like we are constantly seeking the easiest route, the route of least resistance.
Yes.
The moment you add that layer of resistance where even, I find it now the way that they add Apple Pay onto online shopping, and then it just adds your shipping in, because even just having to type in my shipping would be enough to deter me away from an online purchase. And like, now that I don't have to do that. So do you have Apple Pay on your phone?
I do.
But just on that one card?
Only that card. So I've so there was one summer where, I think maybe it was last summer or the summer before, and had my credit card on there. And like, again, it can be really easy to be like, oh, I know I've got maybe £20 left of this weekly budget. This dinner's going to go on my credit card instead. Yeah. And so you can easily just then start being more lax. Yeah. And look, we're all humans. Sometimes we do become a bit too lax. But if you actually do want to incorporate discipline, then, being hard and fast and just deleting all your cards but your weekly bank account, that is the way I personally do it. And I really recommend it, because again, it just makes you more conscious. So I love seeing my girls on the weekend, and because I love seeing them on the weekend, I know on a Monday and Tuesday you would very rarely see me going out for dinner because I'd rather have that money for the weekend instead. So it's little things like that just makes managing your money just, I guess, easier.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And actually, there's a lot of things I personally can take away from that. Just add in that extra, layer of friction. Next, we are going to come on to our buy and bye-bye section. So I'm going to show you a piece of paper and you're going to tell me whether you would buy or like you think it's good, basically, or say bye-bye.
Okay.
We're going to go first. ASOS.
Buy.
Buy.
Yes.
Why do you like an ISA?
So an ISA, if you are listening, you don't know what it is. An ISA is a tax-free account, whether that is a savings account, investment account, and it just allows you to pay less tax to tax spend. So I'm assuming everyone listening would be like, yes to the ISA.
Yeah. And savings accounts.
Buy as well, just because obviously with your ISAs, you only get a tax-free limit of up to £20,000. So I do recommend opening up a savings account as well. Even if you don't want an ISA, then you've still got your savings account. And I always recommend everyone start saving.
Yeah. Next, we have stocks, shares.
Buy, but I'm hesitant to say buy only because, like I said, I'm a huge advocate of investing, but when it comes to investing in individual shares, I'm a bit skeptical because I feel like a lot of people try to be really tactical when it comes to investing, and investing really is for the long term. So I personally don't invest in shares, but I do invest in a different type of investment, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on in the podcast.
For anyone listening, who isn't familiar with like stocks and shares, do you want to explain like briefly what like stocks and shares just are?
Yes, so stocks, shares, the term can be used interchangeably, but essentially when you're buying a share, you are buying a percentage of a company. So for example, this top I'm wearing is from ASOS. So if I wanted to invest in ASOS, I would buy a share of ASOS and that would make me a shareholder. And typically if you are investing in a company, you might get dividends. So if ASOS had a great financial year, they might pay me as a shareholder dividends. So you can also get not only capital gain if the share price appreciated, but you'd also get dividends as well.
I hope that we do come on to other options later on, but you made a really good point about investing in individual like stocks and shares. There's obviously people who dedicate their entire lives to picking stocks and picking shares specifically, and most of them never beat the market. You know, it's a little bit like gambling for finance bros, you know, like it's gambling for the middle class, like you know. So they can be good option. Like there's nuance.
Yes.
Loans. These are very broad.
Yeah, they are. So I feel like we're going to school today, which I love. So I would say bye if we're taking loans in its like in the sense that it is written on this piece of paper, only because I feel like the lack of financial literacy in the UK doesn't teach us really to manage loans or debt properly. And so I guess loans on this sense that I'm seeing it as is money from either the bank that you want to just use just to buy a car, and that's not car finance, that's actually just taking 10 grand from the bank because they can give you 10 grand. Or maybe buy now, pay later. I personally am not a user of buy now, pay later. So I would say bye, but again, a mortgage is a loan. And so you do have great positive loans that you can use to advance in your lives, in your careers. But I guess looking at it face value, I would say bye.
It's a nuanced, it's a nuanced topic. Bitcoin.
I'm a buy.
Interesting. Okay, go on. Tell me why.
So I deliver a lot of financial education workshops, and people love to ask me my thoughts on Bitcoin or just cryptocurrency in general. And I invest in Bitcoin, but I am a long-term investor. I am a buy and hold. I'm not a trader. So I have Bitcoin as part of my portfolio alongside other investments. Yes, Bitcoin is risky, but if you do your due diligence, if you do your research, I'm not anti it, but I wouldn't recommend putting all your life savings into Bitcoin.
You use two terms that I'd love you to explain for any listeners who are not clued up on like finances.
Yes.
So you said like a buy and hold person versus like a trader.
Yes.
So what are the differences between those two like patterns, and what are the pros and cons between both?
So like we mentioned, I think a lot of people see investing as gambling, and I would only say gambling is true if you're looking to pick stocks and I guess just day trade. Anyone that can do that well done. I've yet to meet someone that has successfully day traded, unless you're someone in the London Stock Exchange, for example. But a buy and hold mentality, which is what I do, what I teach, is that when it comes to investing, I recommend investing for at least 5 to 10 years, because we know the stock market goes up and down. So I always recommend, if I'm teaching someone or I'm coaching someone, that investing should be seen as a long-term game. So I think I first invested in Bitcoin in 2020. So I've just held it, and we're up quite a bit, to be fair, but I just leave it just because I don't need that cash right now. So yeah, I feel like, again, because there are dips, I always try and get people to avoid selling when there's a dip, because hopefully, I'd like to think over the next couple of years, it will always recover. And you only have to look at a stock market graph from like 1990, for example, to see that the trend has always been up, but day to day can often fluctuate.
And I think it's really important for people to remember, when it comes to Bitcoin, when it comes to stocks and shares, is that is not the actual money that company is making, or that's not real money. The value of stocks and shares, the value of Bitcoin, is derived from human psychology. And like humans are notoriously emotional, you know. humans are notoriously emotional. The way that 1 minute Bitcoin will be worth a ridiculous amount of money, and then the next it will completely drop. That's not because one day the stock of Tesla might be really high, and then Elon Musk will say something silly and Tesla will plummet. That doesn't mean that Tesla as a company is making less money. It means that people are valuing a Tesla stock less, and that is based on the human brain. That's not based on business.
Supply and demand, isn't it?
Exactly. So like, actually, if you just hold on, you weather the storm of human emotion.
Yes.
And it's almost like weathering your own human emotion, because when people panic, they buy, you know?
Yes.
When you just sit with that and you go, I'm going to stick this out. I'm going to try and not get
rid of the noise. And I think that's what is important. And that's why I don't invest in individual shares, because there's such a high risk of volatility compared to ETFs, index funds, things like that. So yeah, I think buy and hold if you can. And yeah, I think it's just all about having a diversified portfolio, which means just having as many types of investments as you can in one package, or just across multiple different industries, so you are well diversified.
Nice. Next, we have index funds. Index funds.
Buy.
Buy. Nice. Do you want to start by explaining what are index funds and why is this a big buy from you? Yeah.
Yes. So index funds are essentially a collection of companies held into one package. So like we mentioned earlier with shares, I could have, let's say, a clothing index fund. And that might, rather than me invest in ASOS, I could invest in a clothing index fund, which might have ASOS, New Look, Adidas, Nike, all in that one package, and then my money is diversified across all of those different companies. Rather than risking or hedging all my bets into ASOS, they might do really badly, but as an alternative, I can actually invest in that index fund. And let's say if ASOS went bust in that portfolio, hopefully it doesn't, because I love buying my clothes from ASOS. At least I'm diversified across, Nike, Adidas and things like that as well. So it won't have as big an impact compared to if I just invested in individual shares.
And if someone was looking to invest in an index fund, what is their first step, or what is the step-by-step process that someone takes to invest in an index fund?
Yes. So you've got index funds, you've also got ETFs, which you might have heard of before, and that stands for exchange traded funds. So exchange traded funds tend to track a market. So you might have the New York Stock Exchange, or you might have the London Stock Exchange, for example, and it might just track the said economy or said market.
When you say track, you mean just, I'm trying to simplify it.
Yeah.
When you say track, you mean like go up the same percentage that is going up in really like simple terms.
Essentially, let's say for example, so there's loads of different types of ETFs and index funds, but a big popular one is the S&P 500, for example. And I hate the fact that I've had to say it, but people love that investment because there's so many finance bros that love to rave about it. But the S&P 500 tracks the American stock market, and that tracks the 500 largest US companies. So essentially, if all 500 companies are doing really, really well, then you would see an upward growth in that ETF value. And then also that value will then correspond with the I guess, the capital gains you then make as an investor. So that's just a US example, but you've got the FTSE 250 or the FTSE 100, which is the UK stock market. So again, if you wanted just to invest in the UK, you can invest in the US, you've got Asian markets, you've got, so many markets. But if you wanted to get started, firstly, I would say to open up a stocks and shares ISA. Actually, even before that, decide how you want to invest, because when it comes to investing, people always want to just take the advice of someone online. I think you need to think about, are you comfortable with investing yourself, or do you want actually just to use a platform that does all the investing for you? So if you feel comfortable with everything I discussed today, you might want to go down DIY investing and find a platform that can do that for you. So that's where you can then pick your index funds or your ETFs or your individual stocks and shares. And then there's platforms like AJ Bell, Hargreaves Lansdown, there's Invest Engine, and those platforms allow you to invest in all the different investments I mentioned, not cryptocurrency yet, but the other ones that we discussed. Or as an alternative, you can use a robo-advisor. So that's a platform that will do all the investing for you based on your attitude to risk. They might say to you, Faye, how risky are you feeling on a level of 1 to 5? You might say, I'm a level 3 out of 5. And then they'll create this whole investment platform for you based on what you said. And there's platforms like Wealthify. There's platforms like Nutmeg, Moneybox that will do all the investing for you if you don't feel comfortable picking your investments yourself. But once you've chosen that platform, open up your stocks and shares ISA.
I'm going to tell you a little personal story about my first experience with index funds.
Go on.
When I discovered index funds, I made my Vanguard account.
Yes.
And I had no idea how to use it properly. So every so often, or like I had a direct debit that came out every month, and it went half into the S&P and then half into the FTSE, because that was what I heard the finance bro was talking about. And then any extra money that I had, I was like, oh, like at the end of the month, I was like, oh, give that a little invest or whatever. And I just used to put 50 quid in about, I don't know, probably about 10, 12. I literally would scroll down and go, put a tenner in there.
No, you would.
Yeah. And then it was like maybe a couple years later. So I had like, it was, obviously a lot of them are very, very, very similar.
Yes.
And my boyfriend was like, why are you, and I hate that a man had to explain this to me, I'm so, but he was like, why are you doing that? You should only really, like three max, like it's already quite a diverse pot. There's no reason for you to be doing.
Go and dilute it even further, then your £10 will make just 10 pence instead.
When I tell you there was no education whatsoever, I just went, 5 are there, 10
But
are there.
I respect the fact that you
quid.
tried though, because I feel like not enough of us, and again, this isn't financial advice, but I think not enough of us try.
Yeah.
Because I think when you actually do make that first leap, you actually learn on the go. You also then realise, oh, actually, I'm a really good investor. Or you actually see the power of the stock market, because I got my sister investing at like 19 and she started with £20. And I think the week later, she lost 20p and then she was having a go at me. Now she's investing £50 a month and she's now seeing an upward growth. And I was like, see, if only someone had told me at 19 or 20 to start investing, fair enough, I started at 22, but yeah, the power of starting young is just crazy. So I respect the fact that you started.
Yeah, and also like I wasn't worse off. I think I was still better off than if I'd put it in a savings account. Even when I'm not doing this very well, I'm still better off than if that was sat in a savings account with a not very high interest rate. So then now I only have, I think, 2. But he said it's good to have one that's international.
Okay.
Rather than, he was like, if you're going to do an ETF, have one that or if you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3, probably best not to have one in like just the US one, because if the US market crashes, that like
diversification, exactly that. And I guess that if there's anyone else listening, and this is not me telling you to go put all your money into this investment, but you do also then have global index funds or global ETFs. So if you don't want to just put your money into one market, you have again the option to globally diversify your portfolio. And again, when it comes to investing, lots of people often say, but it's too risky, but they don't realise if you have a workplace pension, your money's being invested. And again, that might be globally diversified. That might have US stock markets stocks in. And so again, when we actually think about that and associate it with us investing ourselves, we need to put 2 and 2 together and be like, actually, I'm not stressing about my pension fund. And if I listen to Oliver and only invest for 5+ years, I shouldn't really be stressing about my investments either.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. Real estate.
That's so American.
Real estate. Property.
Buy.
Yes. Okay. I feel like over the last few years, this has been a little bit of a controversial
Very
one.
big controversy.
Very big. Can you talk through why you're a buy and like maybe pros and cons.
Okay, so real estate. I guess if we just put property as one umbrella, buy in terms of like first time buyer, if you want to get in the property ladder and you want to have a home to live in, I think absolutely if you can afford to buy, definitely go down that route. I think the pros of that is that you own an asset. And yes, we still have a mortgage and we have a loan to the bank, but you actually have a tangible asset. Now, I know so many people that buy cars, that buy handbags, and again, there's nothing wrong with it, but they're not real assets and they don't really hold value compared to if you're investing in property. But obviously the cons of that is obviously, you know, high deposits for some areas that we live in. Some people don't love the fact that they owe money to the bank, but I guess the counter argument is that you'd have to pay money somewhere. So would you rather that money go towards a landlord, or you're, I guess, owning that asset, which hopefully is appreciating? I'm not against or for either one. Personally, my personal preference would be to get on the property ladder as soon as I can. And I'm sure many people do have that same dream. But when it comes to buying property as a landlord, I think that's where the big controversy comes in, because obviously there's so many bad landlords out there.
Yeah.
Am I going to advertise the fact that everyone should get on the property ladder and also buy second properties to be a landlord? Probably not. But I have seen some great landlords that have provided some great homes for people. So again, if you're in a privileged position where you can invest in property, definitely go and do so. But I don't think houses are appreciating at the same level as our parents' generations.
No.
And I think there's a lot of people who love to be property gurus or property experts that tell you, oh, just invest 60k into this property and flip it. It's not as simple as that anymore. And I hate the fact that, you know, we're in this era of social media where people love to think that everything's just so easy. And for some it has been, but it's also not for a lot of people. I know a lot of people have lost thousands of trying to flip properties or, you know, become a landlord or start a rent-to-rent business. And I'm not going to go down that route of going into it all. But I think there's pros and cons for both sides. But definitely if you're a first-time buyer and have the dream of getting a property, definitely go for it.
I love investing in my van, like just popping my money in my ISA and not thinking about it. And like where my house in North Wales, my mum and dad bought it for like 70k or something.
Insane, isn't it?
Like a ridiculously low price, but it was like this derelict ex-hotel and they did it up like, and it was a nice, you know, a nice house to live in. But because it was a hotel, the bottom flat was like self-contained because it was like where the owners would live and the rest of it would be like a hotel. That makes it sound like I mean a bed and breakfast. That makes it sound like my house
You're
is
living
a
in a
mansion.
mansion. I want to come down for dinner.
It's a normal, like it's a bed and it was a bed and breakfast. The bottom like basement flat was self-contained. So my mum and dad were like, oh, like we'll rent out the bottom flat because we don't need that space. This woman came in and she gave me bad vibes the whole time. Me and my brother were kicking our ball outside and she screamed at us for kicking our ball. Like, we're children, like, you know, whatever. She basically didn't pay my dad rent for like a year. And obviously renters' rights are so important, passionate about that. But he spent so much money on like lawyers' fees because it was really hard to
Same happened to my mum.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, do you know what? It's not like, I think a lot of property gurus online can make it seem like just rent
very
out.
Very
glamorous. And actually, and you know, you're dealing with people and, you know, that I don't know, that woman might have had a lot of stuff going on. Meaning she couldn't pay her rent, you know, I'm not going to judge on that, but you have to be prepared to deal with people who are going through tricky times, and that's where they're living, you know? You can't just if someone can't pay their rent, just be like, right, fine, go. You have to be able to accommodate people's difficulties, and you know, actually you have to make sure that you have the financial ability to accommodate people's difficulties.
And it's one thing having a bad landlord, but there's also such things as bad renters. Like you said, I've heard so many horror stories of people having to pay thousands in legal fees to evict people out because they're refusing to pay rent. And again, don't know if that's due to whatever issue it is, but then the financial implications of that on the landlord is big as well. And so, I think when it comes to renting out properties, I'm not anti it, but I think, pros and cons, like everything.
Pros and cons, absolutely. Financial books.
Buy. 100%. I feel like it's so important, if you can, to financially educate yourself. And yes, it can seem really boring, but when you start seeing your, your portfolio going up by 20%, you're going to be, I'm so grateful I've invested £5 in a financial book. Yeah, I'm definitely for it. And I actually have a couple of my own ebooks, which I did based on the fact that, wow, if I can teach myself how to invest, I want to teach every young adult how to do the same. So yeah, I'm definitely for financial books.
Favourites, top recommendations.
Oh, okay. Top one would be Money, A User's Guide by Laura Watley. So good, 10 out of 10. And I met her last year and I was like, I'm trying really hard not to fangirl you, but you're just so amazing.
Obviously, social media is the wild, wild west when it comes to
Yes.
financial advice. But I feel like how I learned about investing was just a couple of YouTube videos from reliable sources. And when it comes to like investing your time or your money into financial advice, I cannot emphasize enough the incredible returns you get on that advice. That even, you know, just I think I started investing with just after a couple of YouTube videos. You know, it's like the 80-20 rule. Just by learning 20% of the information, you can get, you know, 80% of the gains, and everything after that is you're getting smaller and smaller margins of returns. But just that really, really, really good basic understanding is so important, and actually quite easily accessible.
Yeah. And I guess, touching on like my second recommendation, if you really want to go down the route of investing, then Simran Kaur's got a really book called
Love
Girls
her.
That Invest. Yeah. Amazing book as well. So there's so many, and all you have to do is literally just do a Google on Amazon, and there's so many of my friends have written books now, and yeah, they're just great. They're great. So yeah.
Simran Kaur, I think it's now Friends That Invest. Did you see that?
Yes.
And she's had to rename the book. It's so sad. But yeah, brilliant.
But such a good book. And Female Invest again, they've also got 2 books. So yeah, there's just loads of books out there that I highly recommend.
Nice. And I think also when it comes to books, like where there's so much books and a lot of the information is the same, I think it's picking up a book and, you know, if it's being explained to you in a way that you find enjoyable and it's not going to feel like homework, you know, the most important thing is, and that's the same with creators, like financial creators. There's some financial creators who drive me absolutely like, you know, it's here's how to save.
Yeah.
Shut up, I've had enough.
We know the ones.
Like, no. But then there's some financial creators where I'm like, you know, it feels homely and accessible and like not like homework, you know?
Yes.
Fab. So we're going to come on to some community questions.
Okay.
What are the basics of investing and its benefits?
Okay, so I feel like we've covered investing quite a bit anyway, but I guess if people still aren't sure, investing is essentially putting your money into a certain asset or stock or fund with the hope that it's going to appreciate in value. And I guess the benefits when it comes to investing is that rather than letting your money, I guess, sit in a savings account where it can earn 3 to 4% interest right now, your money invested could potentially, again, it's never guaranteed, but can potentially grow way quicker and way more than if you were to, I guess, just put it in a savings account. And I feel like the reason why investing is so important is because of inflation. So inflation at the moment in the UK is around 2%. That difference between the UK's inflation rate and your interest in your savings pot is about 1% more. So your savings at the moment are really only earning 1%, whereas the historical average stock market return is around 8 to 10%. So again, the growth when investing is crazy. If done wisely, if you do your research and you don't listen to the finance bros, you can potentially grow your money. And I think that's the real way to grow wealth.
Next community question is pretty interesting. Does gender make a difference in financial health?
Oh, yes, in many ways. Firstly, institutionally, in the sense that we have the gender pay gap.
Yeah.
We have the gender pension gap, and we also have a gender credit score gap. Don't know if you knew that one, but we do.
No.
So institutionally and just societally, we as women are disadvantaged. So I feel like, yes, that has a big part to play in. But I think because of that, I think men more than ever have a really important role to actually, one, speak out when they see financial injustices in the office or the workplace. If they feel like they're more clued up about money than their female counterparts, then to educate. And I feel like it's really important that we open up the conversation when it comes to money because of these disparities. So yeah, I do think there's big gender differences. I mean, it's factually backed, but yeah, I think is something that we all need to do as a society to come together and actually hopefully close those gaps.
I think when I discovered the gender pension gap, it's often women who take time out of their careers to have kids and raise kids as well, or even care for something that's also not so spoken about, or even care for elderly relatives.
Yes.
That's often what falls on women as well. And I just completely didn't even think that time that women take out of their careers, they're not putting money into their pension, and then women end up with less money, like with less pension. And I remember the first time I learned about that, I spoke to my boyfriend. And I also think it's really important to have those really honest conversations with your partners if you are choosing to raise children, have children, regardless of whether it is the man or the woman who decides to take a step back in their career. If one of you has to take a step back in your career, which it will be, there needs to be that conversation that someone else is going to be financially compensated for that step back. And yeah, I think making sure women are aware of that is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also, again, this is very stereotypical, but again, even when it comes to like the gender credit gap, that is a result of oftentimes men taking care of the financial responsibilities within families, which, God forbid, if there are now separations, if there's divorces, women sometimes can also happen to men, but you find that they might not have great credit scores. So then if they want to seek financial help, they might need a loan. They might struggle to get that. And then often off the back of that, then they become subject to financial abuse.
Yeah.
So there's a big disparity when it comes to gender. And that's obviously not to try and, I guess, I'm trying to sound too woke.
We're not coming after the men. We're just this is centuries and centuries of women. Yeah. And it's not all men. It's not all men. Like my boyfriend's like really, when I said this about the gender pay gap, he was like, no, that makes complete sense.
And I have lots of male allies, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think it's when women couldn't have credit cards till the 70s.
Yes.
Financial literacy for women is younger than our mothers.
So true.
Can we just,
that's
like
wild
solidify
you
that?
Put it like that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there may be people whose birth year starts with a 2. Like, then maybe not quite, but that is so young. So it's not that we're anti-men. It's like we are trying to empower women with new knowledge for the female gender.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So I think that's why financial literacy is so important, because the more we educate everyone can then pass on their nuggets of information. And I feel like just the stigma and taboo of talking about money just then hopefully becomes eradicated. Hopefully one day.
The next community question is tips on starting good financial habits for young people.
Oh, so I feel like number one, educate yourself. So reading those financial books, watching podcasts, listening to some of those TikToks.
Reliable sources, yeah.
And so, educate yourself first. And then I guess when it comes to just improving your financial health, starting with that all-important budget. So, how are you when it comes to managing your finances? Are you someone that gives themselves a budget, quote unquote, but then at the end of the month is dipping into their savings because they didn't budget enough? Or are you someone that, I guess, lives on their bare bones budget and then can't afford to live life? And I think when it comes to managing our finances, balance is so important. And so I think if you can budget, but also know your weaknesses. So, okay, can we add friction like we mentioned earlier? So if you're someone that dips in and out your savings, can you add friction? So maybe putting your money into a fixed rate account, which means it's fixed and you can't touch it for a certain period of time. Or are you someone that doesn't know where to start? So getting a budgeting app that can do the hard work for you, like automation, technology. There's so much now that I feel like there's not really an excuse to not be budgeting.
Fine, fair. That felt like a big at. Like,
not you, but at everyone.
Yeah. But what are your favourite apps?
So one of my favourites was Money Hub, and sadly they no longer exist, but there are other many budgeting apps out there now, like Emma, Snoop. Some come with paid versions, but I don't think, if you want to just start budgeting, you don't necessarily have to pay for any of these apps. Monzo, again, is another one of my favourites because, one, it helps me with my weekly budget, and then 2, it helps me round up my spending to this nearest pound, which then gets put into a savings pot. So I'm saving for all the extracurricular activities I've got, my friends' weddings I've got to attend to next year. So all of that really, really helps. Do your research. There's so much out there now that really helps us manage our finances as well.
Yeah, we've got computers. We can use them. We've got phones.
We've got ChatGPT now. So you can literally type out, create a budget for me based on this income and these expenses. There's no excuse.
No excuse. Absolutely no excuse. We're going to come on to a TikTok video that I wanted to get your thoughts on. I wanted to know, for listeners who are looking for reliable information about money when there's so much nonsense out there on social media, what would your advice be?
There's great content creators on TikTok and Instagram, but I think it's always just important, regardless of who you're getting your information from, it's just to cross-reference, to cross-fact, to cross-check, because I feel like, although someone might, like for me, for example, although I might share the best savings accounts for, I don't know, easy access savings accounts, I think it's always best to just do your own research, because you might find something that's better for you. I might have a slight bias, although I don't. I think I'm quite impartial. But I think it's really important just to always just cross-check everything you see online.
Yeah. It's the same with medical stuff. It's just so important you're getting your information from multiple sources, doing your own research. So we had a lot of community questions about overspending, which I think is so, it's such a big issue when you go on Instagram and it's ads. Mm-hmm. Our attention is being drawn in every direction. But I was wondering if you could really quickly explain what a credit score is and what that means for someone's financial health.
Yeah, so a credit score is essentially a number given to you that, I guess, shows your credit worthiness. So that essentially means that, let's say Experian's credit score goes up to 999. So I might be given a credit score of 349, and that shows the lenders how good I am at managing credit. So essentially, the higher the score, the better, because it means to lenders that you're great at managing credit. And when I talk about credit, that's money you're borrowing from a bank or a credit lender. So that might be in the form of a bank loan, credit score, buy now, pay later. So again, it's really important that you look after your credit score, because it can have an impact when it comes to buying a property, if you want to get a car on finance, even just getting out sometimes a mobile phone bill, even renting now. So again, it's really important that you look after your credit score, because again, I feel like it's not something we're taught about, but funnily enough, so many people are aware of what it is, but sometimes don't often look after it as well as they should.
Well, I have a bit of an embarrassing story to tell when it comes to my credit score. So when I applied for my mortgage, I got rejected, and I was like, oh, why have I got rejected? And then the mortgage broker was like, go through this website and download your report and I'll look through it and see why.
Yes.
Anyway, so number one, wasn't that big of an issue, but still something to be aware of. When I took out like my mobile phone contract,
yes,
I took it out in my university flat.
Okay.
And so all the letters were coming through there. And I went home for summer and I missed 2 of the bills.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe I had them for direct debit, but then there were extra fees that came out or whatever.
It happens.
I missed 2 bills, and when I came back, opened up the post, paid them.
Yeah.
But those were 2 like black marks on my credit, and that was from 2 years before I tried to buy my flat. Anyway, that was obviously like not great. The bad thing was I had 2 CCJs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not 1. 2 CCJs.
Wow.
Because I had got a parking ticket and now I was living in London and they had got sent to my family home in North Wales. My mum was like,
no,
you can open your post when you get home, sort of thing. 2 CCJs. And that is a big
that's a big black mark.
Big black mark. At this point, I was really, really deep into the process, and it was basically like I really wanted to buy this flat, obviously, and it basically prolonged the process of buying my flat by about 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, because my mortgage just kept getting rejected, and then I was calling the courts every day to see, because I then paid it.
Yeah,
I was calling the courts every day, and I was within a certain time frame that I could get it wiped, but I was calling the courts every day to see when it was going to get wiped. And I was in work, like calling.
Stressful. Buying a home is already stressful enough, let alone dealing with that.
It was horrible. And like, so not just, if I just checked my credit score, that would have been flagged, and like I probably wouldn't have got to that point.
Yeah.
But also like little things like having the right address on things. So if something bad happens, if you miss a bill, you're not going 2-3 months without realising.
Yeah.
Like,
It's literally things like that. And it's interesting because I'm assuming you're great with managing your money and you probably would never have thought you would find yourself in this situation. And I think, again, this is where financially educating ourselves is so important, and just being aware of everything, because everything has an impact.
Yeah.
So much so that a friend of mine was also looking to buy a property, and they used buy now, pay later during the process of them buying a property, or at least in the lead up. And look, there's not necessarily anything wrong with buy now, pay later if used responsibly. But what happened is that she bought I think it was like a £15 or £20 dress on buy now, pay later, and paid it in like 3 or 4 installments. And so the mortgage lender, I mean, she got her mortgage approved, but the mortgage lender was like, can we ask why you bought this on buy now, pay later? Is this you showing us that you can't afford to buy a £15, £20 dress? And if you can't, then why are you taking out a mortgage?
Yeah.
So things like that, you just have to be very cautious of how that looks, because again, the mortgage lender is going to be giving you thousands, hundreds of thousands to buy a property, but yet you're buying a £20 dress on buy now, pay later. So it's optics and things like that's really important, alongside, just keeping your credit score in good health.
Yeah. I also heard a story of someone who they got their offer accepted on their home, and then they went out and they ordered all their new furniture and stuff
on their credit card or on something.
Yeah. And then there's this huge increase of the amount that they've borrowed, and then they couldn't get a mortgage.
Yes.
So
it happens. Things like, again, financial education, because I wouldn't have known that unless I'd have done my research a few years ago. I mean, I'm very far off buying a property at the moment. But I think it's really important that you do realise things like that, because again, your credit score, you think it's just 3 numbers that you check every month if you are good enough to do that, or it's something that's just completely something you've forgotten about. But it's so important to check it every month because it's completely free to do.
Yeah.
You can check your credit report. So that's a more in-depth look at what's going wrong if it's a bit lower than you expected. But I think it's one thing to caveat that if you are finishing university and you do have a university loan, that doesn't impact your credit score. So I feel like a lot of graduates always stress when they come out of uni, fresh face, got their first paycheck, they always stress about their credit score, and that's not something to worry about straight away.
Student loan, I don't think it should be called a student tax.
Yes, really. Essentially.
Yeah, because it's not like the same loan as, because I don't look at my student loan. That's
I'd rather not.
Yeah, that's not my business. That's really not my business. Now we're going to come on to another section, which is it real or real, which spelled like Instagram reel. So I'm going to show you a short social media clip.
Okay.
And I would just love to know what your thoughts are on it.
Okay.
Honestly, I think it's a no-brainer.
$250 divided by 10, $25 a wear.
Yep.
For 10 wears.
You'll wear it way more than 10 times.
So $5 a wear for 20 wears.
So cheap.
Yeah.
You're literally buying it from the dollar store.
It's like getting a coffee every time I wear it.
Yes.
Which I'll do anyway. No,
you could
adds more.
No, if you forfeit your coffee every time you wear that, then it's basically free. We cracked girl math.
That is so good.
We cracked girl math.
So girl math. What are your thoughts on girl math?
Okay, so when the whole trend of girl math came out, obviously loved the trend, and it made me howl because of all the content that was coming up. But at the same time, going back to our conversation earlier when we talked about, I guess, the societal disadvantages we have as women, it was a shame to then have, and this is not me to be a Debbie Downer, but it was a shame to have this joke coined girl math, because it's like, what happened to the male math?
Yeah.
It's like, we're already financially disadvantaged as it is. So it's a shame that we were kind of, I guess, joking along that trend. But at the same time, I did really enjoy that trend because things like that does make me laugh. But I think, if we look at the wider picture, you know what I mean?
It also reinforces this stereotype that women are just...
That's the word.
Shop addicts.
Yes.
We can't control our spending. We're and also, this idea that women are the ones who are going to spend, men are earning the money, and we're just out here spending the money, which I kind of hate.
Yes.
It also speaks to the leapfrogs I think we can do as women in our head, where we are convincing ourselves that it's a purchase that's worthwhile. And often it's probably just doing the work of marketeers. These marketeers have put an idea in our head, and we're like, yes, this dress that I may only wear once is a good idea for me to spend £70 on. Which brings me on to a community question. How to recover from shopping or spending addiction?
Good question. And I've done quite a bit of content on this, just through workshop delivery on the podcast. But I think if you can, it's to reinforce or add back friction into our spending. So what does that look like? I'm coming in harsh. Deleting all the shopping apps off our phone.
Yes.
Actually, even before that, I think it's really important to identify your triggers.
Yeah.
So when you find yourself shopping, what is that trigger? Is
Yeah.
it because you're bored? Is it because you're low in mood? Is it because, I don't know, your boyfriend's ghosted you again? Do you know what I mean? Identify your triggers and then add the friction back. So, you know, delete the shopping apps on your phone. I've had to do it multiple times before. I had to delete ASOS because, again, I used to find myself in bed scrolling on an ASOS.
Like it was Instagram. That was my thing. Whereas just looking at it on Safari, I was like, this is... I don't want to do this.
It doesn't have the same effect, right? So deleting the apps. If you are someone that shops on their phone or on their laptop, removing all your card details. Because we all know no one is getting up off their backside to go grab their card from their purse.
Yeah.
Let's be real. So I feel like, again, adding that friction is better because, like we mentioned, Apple Pay is now on, let's say, on most of our phones. So we only have to tap Apple Pay now to buy our basket. So again, if you deleted that from your phone, you'd have to get up and you'd then think, actually, do I really want this? Do I really want those new shoes? Do I really need that handbag? Do I need that new £100 robe, for example? I think that's really important to consider. And then also maybe implement something called, what I like to call the 30-day rule. And that's by, if you're a big online window shopper like I am, leave that basket for 30 days. So add everything you want and leave it for 30 days. Revisit it. You might not even visit it because you might have forgotten about the basket. But if you do remember, give it 30 days, come back. And most often than not, a lot of the things you wanted to buy is probably stuff you don't want anymore. And I found myself guilty of that because I don't know about you, but my ASOS hearted items, I always look back and I'm like, ew.
Yes. I'm like, what?
I was like, you do not need that. So yeah, I think adding those different bits of friction is really important. But I think the biggest one is to identify your triggers for sure.
I really, really love that because whether that trigger is, feeling really crappy about yourself. I know for me, if I'm feeling emotionally not my best, I'm like, what is going to give me a little bit of a kick?
Boost?
Yeah. It will be being Santa Claus to myself and delivering some presents to my door. Like, you know, and it's actually not going to make you feel better. It's just going to fill a void. It's a plaster over a gaping hole. But I guess other triggers, Instagram, I unfollowed loads of clothing brands on Instagram because that was a big one. Big one.
TikTok for me is a big one when it comes to like, and it's so funny because I made an Instagram post about this, about things I refused to buy this autumn. But the amount of people that made me feel like I had to buy like a boo basket or had to buy like, I don't know, a stuffed pumpkin toy. Do you know what I mean? Or decoration. Like, and I was like, I'm quite frugal, like I mentioned, but I was finding myself adding bits into my basket. I was like, no, Ollie, you don't need all this. And consumerism is big, right? Especially with social media now. So I think, it's really important that you do, if you can as well, start unfollowing people you don't really want to be checking out either.
Yeah, also influencers. There was one influencer that I follow and she posted 4 ads in 1 week. And I was like, nah, that's...
It's too much.
Pardon?
It gets too much.
It is. Sorry, I thought you said she's March. And I was like, what's March? No, too much. It's too much. A, it's irritating. B, like, I do not need the temptation in my way. Like, I do not need convincing to impulse spend. I'm bad enough on my own. I do not need you posting 4 sponsored reels in 1 week. That is no. Also, I think for me, really helped unsubscribing from the marketing.
Yes.
That was a big one. When you come into my email basket and I'm already avoiding my emails as it is, I don't want to go through my emails. And then you come on and tell me there's 50% off. You give me an excuse to procrastinate. That is, and spend my money. It's a double whammy. It's not nice.
It is a lot. And again, you can just be going about your day.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're, I don't know, you sat in front of the TV with a wine in your hand and then you get 25, I did get this from New Look the other day, 25% off.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, didn't need anything, but there's me like, oh, let me just have a little look to see if there's anything I would want with 25% off.
And you will find something. You will find something. Because also it's that like the mentality in your head when someone tells you it's 25% off, the kind of the girl math is, well, I'm losing money unless I find something. And it's not. It's only a bargain if you need it.
Yes. And if you weren't ever going to buy it, then it's not a discount.
No. Yeah, exactly. Like you are not making money. Like you are spending money.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is a really good community question that I'd love to cover. Tips on balancing saving for short-term goals like your specialty, holidays.
Yes.
And long-term ones like buying a house.
Good question. So I think firstly, you need to draw up a budget. So if you want to save, how much can you realistically afford to save? And then if you can, open up 2 separate pots. That might be 2 pots on Monzo, that might be a bank account with Zopa or one with Lloyds, for example. Give yourself 2 pots and try, if you can, save alongside each goal. Or if your house fund is something you want to put more money into, put more money into that, and then a little less into your like short-term savings goal. But I think it's really important to start with that budget and give yourself a numerical number for both of these pots. So what are you working towards? Because again, I often work with people and they say, I need to save. And I'm like, okay, how much should we save it? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I think it's really hard to stay motivated when you don't know what the end goal is. Because for me, if I know I need to save 10 grand, if I reach to like 9,000, I'm like, oh, I'm nearly there now, then I'm going to put more. Whereas if I had no goal, it's very like, oh, I'm saving £10. Actually, I might just take that £10 because I can't be bothered. So I think if you associate a numerical number alongside that goal that you want to achieve, really, really recommend. But again, if you do have that habit of like dipping in and out of your savings, rather than having an easy access savings account, which is where you can access the money anytime you like, opt for a fixed rate account, which is where your money's locked away for a certain amount of times. That might be 3-6 months, 1 to 5 years. But also if you're maybe looking to buy your very first home, you might want to look at opening up a lifetime ISA, which is a fixed account which you can't touch, but the government adds 25% bonus for every £1 you add into it, up to £4,000. So that's something you can look at as well. So yeah, I would say those are my different tips. It's quite a lot of information, but those are different tips.
Those are really, really useful. If you were someone with debt and they're listening to this podcast and they're thinking, I want to save, I want to start investing in an ISA, how would you approach that differently if you had debt?
Very, very good question. So if you are someone with debt and you want to start saving, I would look at what is the savings account offering you in terms of interest and how much is your debt costing you.
Yeah.
So on average, I think the average credit card APR is around 24 to 27%. So if you've got debt of £1,000 and it's costing you £24 per month to pay that off, then I would focus on the debt first, because having 4% interest on £1,000 is nothing compared to how much it's costing you in debt. So if you can try and tackle the debt first, I would do so. But I know at the same time, people like to have at least something to fall back on. So if you are in a privileged position where you can tackle some debt and also save at the same time, definitely do that. But I would look at tackling the debt first. You might want to maybe look at balance transfer. So that's maybe where you can transfer the balance onto a 0% interest card. So at least every single month you won't be paying any interest if you're making the minimum repayments. So again, looking at all of those different options, I think is really important. But there's so many great charities such as Citizens Advice, Christians Against Poverty, that give really good impartial advice if you're struggling with debt.
I think it can be such a shame-filled topic.
100%.
And I can't remember what the statistic is, but like it's a really, really, really high percentage of people who in the UK who have debt.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like huge.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's become so normalised. People put in, and coming up to Christmas, people put in their Christmas presents.
On their credit cards.
Yeah,
Buy now, pay
into
later.
debt. Yeah, going into debt to show people they love them.
Yes.
People going into debt to get married. Like, debt is not a good thing, but it shouldn't be something that we feel ashamed of. It should be something that we are able to talk openly about, because you're right, there are so many incredible charities and there's so many amazing options. You know, like when I, you know, at the beginning of the podcast, and I said financial health is part of health. You know, the risk of suicide, the risk of it's such a huge risk. A reason for suicide is debt. It's not something, it's such a serious topic, and there is options out there, there is advice, there is help. I'm really glad that we touched on that. What are your opinions on getting into debt for Christmas or getting into debt for, say, a wedding?
So I personally would obviously say bye. However, I am obviously very aware of people's different circumstances, and I know for some people their only option is to use credit. So I don't want to discount or come for anyone that is in that situation. But if you are someone that is getting into debt just for the sake of, you know, being able to look like they can afford to buy the presents they're buying or to keep up appearances, then this is for you. So I would say I'm really not for that, and I would advise against it, just because we all know how long January lasts, right? We always joke about how long that paycheck has to last when it comes to January. You don't want to find yourself in a position where you've spent so much money on your credit card and then you struggle to make your ends meet in January, and then you have to borrow more money.
Yeah.
And I think what gets people into debt is not necessarily the money they spent on the credit card or the loans they've taken out, it's the interest on top. Buying products with a credit card, it's not necessarily the fact that you've done that, it's just, okay, do you have a plan to pay it off?
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of my Christmas presents will go on my credit card because there's a higher level of protection when buying with a credit card. So if you have a purchase between £100 and £30,000, if the product doesn't come as received or it comes faulty, then you are protected with your credit card. So that's why I personally would use a credit card. But I have that money in savings ready to pay it off in full. So I think if you are looking to spend on a credit card, making sure you have that exit plan is really important, but do not spend beyond your means. I think that's the biggest tip I want someone to take on board on this podcast today. And again, I think when it comes to Christmas, there's so much unnecessary pressure, because if I said to my mum right now, Mum, I have no money, but I can afford, I don't know, a dinner out, she'd be like, that's more than fine. I don't need you to give me all these lavish gifts. Your love's enough. And so I think it's about having those open and honest conversations with loved ones this year if you are struggling financially, because there's no point trying to keep up appearances and then you're going to find yourself in a debt spiral. We don't want that, and your loved ones wouldn't want that either. So I think it's about having those important conversations in the lead up to Christmas.
And like, we build connection off vulnerability.
Yes.
That's the way that we build relationships. We don't build relationships by putting up this facade. Like, then we're not building a real connection. And in the cost of living crisis, you will probably say to your friends, you know, like, I'm really struggling right now. And I guarantee if that's a group of friends, a lot of them will say, do you know what?
So
Me
am I.
too. Yeah. I'm so glad you said it. Like, we do Secret Santa every year, like me and my group of girls. And every year it's just got, you know, with cost of living, the budget's just got progressively higher. And this year they were like, do you know what? Like, it's just getting out of control. We were spending like 50 quid like on one present.
Wow.
Because we thought it would be cheaper to do like, we thought it'd be better.
One present per person rather than loads of different. Yes, I get it.
We ended up spending like 50 quid because you can't, like, it's really hard to get like a good present.
Yes.
So then this year we're doing like thongs and something else. We're all getting each other.
I love that.
Not very on brand, but
no, I love that, because Primark thongs are now £5 a pack.
But this is it. You can get like so we can get like, I'm not going to say who my Secret Santa, who my gift, but I can get like a fun thong. Like, and I love a fun thong. This is so not on brand. Love a fun thong. And it can be funny. Like, we can go around, give each other the thong, and there we go. That's
and you'll use it.
Yeah, exactly. It will be used. It's a useful present. But that's going to be, and we still get the same process of we're all going to be sat around opening up the presents together. We're getting a better return on investment because we have the exact same amount of time. We're just spending a lot less money. It's not just presents, you know, like Christmas comes up and everyone is like, we need a Christmas dinner, and you're like, I'm literally doing like 3 Christmas dinners this week. Like, this is a ridiculous amount of money, and this is before we even get into presents. So we started doing like, we did a Christmas dinner. We're like, the girls as well. We did like a Christmas dinner at home, you know,
and it makes a big difference.
Huge difference.
Makes a big difference.
Everyone bring a dish. Do you know what I mean? The phrase "a prosecco lifestyle on a
champagne budget." No, champagne lifestyle on a Prosecco budget. Yes.
Like, that springs to mind. And also the funny thing is, I don't know if you agree, you meet people who actually are like fucking loaded and they're in the scruffiest clothes you've ever seen. They're driving their 2007 Toyota.
Yeah.
Like, people who have a lot of money. And I'm thinking of a specific example that I cannot share right now, but like, who are you trying to prove your wealth to?
Yeah.
Remember that.
I agree. And I just think hopefully you guys are taking this in, because I think Christmas is the biggest time of year where people feel that financial burden and feel really out of place or feel really stressed. And I feel like Christmas is one day. We got 364 days left to think about. I think that's how many days are in the year.
And like, I don't know, like, you enjoy something so much more if you're not in the back of your mind like, this is really expensive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I go out for dinner, it's my 3rd dinner in the week of doing my Christmas dinner rounds, and I'm like, this is another £50. Like, oh, this food suddenly doesn't taste as nice. Whereas like when we all went round to my friend's house, I think she cooked, but we all chipped in like money for the ingredients or
and it
whatever.
can literally be like, it can be like 15 quid.
Exactly. And we're all sat around that table enjoying ourselves more than we would at a dinner table at a restaurant, because we're like, no one is worrying about the bill coming at the end of the night.
No one's trying to pay for their own bill or trying to do them out. It's just chill.
I didn't have a drink. Like, yeah.
The classic.
Yeah, but and it's hard because I'm like, oh no, fair enough. Like, you know, you're counting your money, you know, fair enough. But it takes that away
Pressure
from it.
off, yeah.
Takes the pressure off. You can buy a bottle of Prosecco from the corner shop and
For like £6-7 and you're sorted.
and not £27 in a restaurant.
More than that, I went to a restaurant the other day and the house wine was £42.
Oh.
I was like, this venue is not giving £42 bottle of wine, but you just have to bin and grare it, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah, and you don't want to be like the awkward. You don't want
to be like, oh, I'm just going to drink water instead.
Yeah.
So that weekly budget,
yeah,
that went all on that dinner.
Yeah, the weekly budget. Oh, this is a really good community question that I'd really like to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Tips to get ahead and grow credit rating after financial sidestep, divorce and solo parenting.
Oh, I feel you. I do feel, and I feel like there's a lot of people in this position, because I've worked with a lot of clients. But so when it comes to rebuilding our credit score, one thing that really annoys me about the UK is that one way to improve your credit score is to get a credit card. But before that, number one is to get yourself on the electoral roll. So if you have moved out from a partner's or you've moved address, make sure you registered on the electoral roll, which is basically just registering to vote, because that shows lenders that you live at a set address. So I think that's the first step. Second step is, annoyingly, for some people, they will have to maybe apply for a credit card to rebuild that credit score. And the reason why it helps rebuild it is because of the fact that it shows lenders that if you're using it responsibly, that you can use credit wisely. And so because of that, your credit score increases. So by doing so, you need to set yourself a limit. So I would say, if you can, only spend a small amount of money on that. So when I got my very first credit card, I was only spending £100 a month on car petrol. And that meant I knew I could pay it off in full every single month. The only way your credit score will increase is if you're using it responsibly and ideally paying it off in full. That's really, really, really a big one. And then to also look at your credit utilization. So what I mean by that is, if you have maybe checked your credit score and you're thinking, why is it so low? You want to see how much credit are you using out of the available credit they're lending you. So what I mean by that is, you want to aim for around 25 to 35% utilization, which means if the bank has given me £1,000 a month on my credit card, I shouldn't really be exceeding around £250 to £350 each month, because again, it shows the lenders that even though they've given me a certain amount of money, I'm able to use it responsibly. So I'm not using the bank's money and going, you know what, let's just go to Thailand, let's go to Bali. Like, I'm actually thinking, okay, I'm going to use this wisely, and they love that. And so they do reward you for that. So yeah, I think that's really important. But there are some new developments when it comes to our credit scores, which is really exciting. I don't know when, but they are looking at putting rental payments as a way to also track your credit score worthiness. So I think that's a really big change that will be happening soon, hopefully. So keep your eye peeled. So if you are someone that pays rent on a regular basis and is actually able to do so, again, hopefully we actually be able to reap some benefits of that. Another thing is that some bills, if you don't have any bills in your name at the moment, put some bills in your name, because again, that also shows that you can pay your bills on time, contributing to your credit score. That can be, in some cases, mobile phone contracts, heating, electricity, all that stuff. So yeah, definitely do it as well if you can.
I completely agree with you. It's really annoying that to build a credit card is like probably one of the best ways to do it. But in the hands of some people, a credit card, like, you can get a credit card at 18. And I know a lot of people who did get a credit card at 18 and they wouldn't, it was not a good idea. Not a good idea, because often these limits will be set to actually above your monthly salary.
Exactly this.
And it's because I think it's really important for people to know that they kind of would like it if you don't pay this off in full.
100%. That's how they make money.
Yeah. So they if you pay that off in full every month, they're not making any money. So like, they're making money by you going into debt. So they will subtly incentivize that by giving you a limit that is more than your monthly salary. So even if you put everything on there, you wouldn't be able to pay it off if you went up to your limit. So I guess for people like that, or like especially young people, I've heard people recommend before put in like your mobile phone contract on your name instead of say like your parents. That can like help.
Definitely. Yeah. So like I mentioned, for mobile phone contract, not in all instances will it contribute to your credit score, but depending on the provider, it can do. And then again, if you have moved out, bills, so like we mentioned, council tax, like heating, electricity, all of the bills. I'm not even going to list it off because it makes me sad because we pay for so much in the UK. But yeah, just adding some bills in your name can really, really help. So yeah, do that as well if you can.
Yeah, and pay your parking ticket.
Yes.
We'll do 2 more community questions and then the final question that we've been asking all our guests.
Okay.
So what can I do in my late 20s to get ahead and set myself up for financial security and freedom?
Oh, good one. So if you're already saving, then I would look at investing. Obviously, this is not financial advice, just caveating that. But like we mentioned, there's so many ways you can invest now without even having to lift a finger. So invest if you can. But we haven't touched this on the podcast today, but also looking at your pension. I feel like our pension pot is something that us as young people really often overlook. And the reason why it's such a great thing to look at and utilise more of is because 1, it's invested. 2, we have our employers, well, not ours because I'm self-employed, but you guys have your employers' contributions, which is free money. And 3, it's tax-free. So if you can maximise your pension. And this goes for people that also don't feel comfortable with investing in the stock market themselves. So you can maximise your pension by increasing your contribution. That's great because that's more money going into your pension pot for when you retire. And then also for a lot of employers now, they will match that. So that's even more free money. So I think that's really important. Tip number 2 is to look at where your pension's currently being invested. So if you're maybe in your early to mid 20s, even early 30s, or you don't see yourself retiring for a number of years, more often than not, our pension fund is put into a default fund, which is normally a risk level of 3 out of 5. If you're not retiring for a while, you might want to increase your risk appetite because again, well, for me, I'm not retiring for like another 40 years. It might even increase in the future. I can, I guess, take on more risk is what I'm saying. So again, this is up to you, and I would seek financial advice if you can. But if you can afford to take on more risk, you might want to switch up your pension fund because then it means it's working harder for you if it's aggressively growing in your formative years compared to when you're closer to retirement. So those are 2 ways that you can really look at maximising your pension that, again, people don't often think about.
That's really, really useful information that I did not know that I'm going to look into because my poor NHS money is just
sitting there.
Yeah. Final community question that we've got is, what are your thoughts on increasing income versus decreasing spending as a way to save, create wealth? Which I think is super interesting because you're self-employed.
Good question. So funnily enough, when I first started AllThingsMoney, I used to say, cut your expenses, cut your expenses, cut your expenses. But I think for the majority of us, we have all cut everything we can cut. There might be some people that are paying for 4 different subscriptions they don't need, but I'm not talking to those people. I think a lot of us have cut a lot because of the cost of living. We actually just can't afford many luxuries, which is a shame because we work so hard for our money. So I think the next thing is to see if we can increase our income. That is the best way to grow wealth. So what does that look like? That looks like negotiating higher salaries if we can, or job hopping. I know the job market's really hard, but for some people they can jump to another job and get like, I've heard of people getting like 30 to 40 grand pay rises just for moving jobs, which is insane. And then secondly, seeing if there's ways you can take on a side hustle. And that's not necessarily meaning a business. I feel like lots of people always think, oh, that's another person telling me to start a business. And I'm not saying that because it does take a lot of time to start a business, but a side hustle, that can look like selling things on Vinted, doing consumer research, taking part in surveys, getting paid to search the internet. There's so many ways of making extra cash in that way that is often overlooked as well. And so, yeah, thirdly, if you can increase your income by creating an actual business, amazing. So yeah, there's so many ways now where you can make money that doesn't just necessarily rely on your full-time job. And I always encourage to multiply your streams of income because our jobs aren't guaranteed anyway. There's been so many redundancies made this year that it's absolutely crazy. So we're learning that job security is pretty much a myth in some cases. So if you can diversify your streams of income, it's really, really important to do so. And obviously the actual way you can do it is by investing in the stock market as well.
Yeah. I think when you say like start a business, it's just like so intimidating. But I think the best advice that anyone gave me was don't take what is obvious to you as obvious to everyone else.
Yes.
And I'm sure like that'll resonate with you in terms of financial literacy. Like you've spent so much time researching financial literacy. This is like your first language.
Yeah.
Whereas to so many other people, this is like, they are not familiar with it. This is a foreign tongue. Like this is not, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, even when like I'm saying things like, oh, do you mind just breaking that down for people who don't understand? Because that was me not long ago. And
So true.
And I think that it's really important for listeners listening, if you are interested in growing your income, is recognizing that we all have things that are obvious to us but aren't obvious to everyone else. And when we say starting a business, it sounds really intimidating, but that could just mean using the knowledge that you have to earn a little bit more money.
Yeah. And people have such good knowledge. I always joke that I've never been a corporate girly, right? But when people are telling me what they do at work and the skills they must have acquired, I'm thinking you can make bank by, you know, freelancing on the side. And again, that doesn't have to be a whole business. That can just be a side hustle. And yes, I know a lot of people are time poor, but for some people that are scrolling on TikTok or, you know, scrolling on ASOS, you actually realise some other times you can actually be like putting in the graft and maybe earning that extra couple of hundreds, if not thousands, because it's crazy the money people are earning now.
Like we are constantly, for this podcast, we are constantly looking for more freelancers, for like researchers. Like we've employed like journalists to do research for us, thumbnail designers, editors. Like there are people who are looking for help.
Yes.
The internet is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place. Markets like Fiverr or like there's lots of job markets online where you can do a couple of extra hours of work a week, freelance, time that you might be spending scrolling.
Yep.
That you can maybe earn a little bit of income. That's going to do so much more for your bank balance than cancelling your Netflix subscription. I can't remember.
Facts.
Yeah, like I can't remember. Someone said like someone did a calculation about cancelling the Netflix subscription and whatever, because boomers were saying cancel your Netflix subscription and you'll be able to afford a house, or don't have your weekly takeout coffee and you'll be able to afford a house. And it's such a load of shit. That is not going to make up the difference when they were buying their £30,000 house, 3-bedroom detached houses.
Yeah.
Like Netflix, cancelling your Netflix, not getting your weekly coffee is not going to do that.
And that's why, and I'd say this at all of my events, increasing your income is the biggest way of getting on the property ladder. To find financial freedom, to get financial security, you need to be looking at ways of increasing that income. And sometimes that just means becoming creative.
Yeah, no, completely agree. That has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. Before you go, there's a final question that we've been asking all the guests. Ola, what do you wish every woman knew by the time she was 25?
Invest in the stock market. I hate to be that person, but honestly, I always joke that if I knew how to invest the minute I walked out the womb, I would have.
Yeah.
And that would have done so much to my deposit, like future house deposit. That would have done a lot for just getting through university. That would have paid for my driving lessons. So yeah, if you can start investing now, please do. Do it wisely, do it responsibly, see it as a long-term game. Like I'm envious of my sister investing now. So yeah, genuinely start if you can afford to do so. If not, look at your pension as another means of investing as well.
Love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For the viewers listening, where can they find you?
Where can you find me? So you can find me online on TikTok and Instagram at AllThingsMoney_. I've got a podcast as well, which is the All Things Money podcast. We're on YouTube under the same handle. And yeah, I do one-to-ones. I have a range of ebooks on my website, which is at www.allthingsmoney.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.